Perfect. All right, we are going to get started tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here in person as well as online. It is me once again. I am Brooke, if you haven't met me yet. I am here in place of Dr. Josh Beaudry once again. As last week, he was in the semifinals with his hockey team, and they won. So he is in the finals tonight, and we will see how they do. Yeah. So send him some good vibes, some good luck, and we'll hear from him tomorrow. But for tonight, we are going to be talking about neurological change versus behavioral change. So when you are in office getting adjustments, getting neurofeedback, we are changing you on a neurological level. But when you are at home, there is another aspect to your healing journey, and that is behavioral changes. And that is not something that we can do. That's not something anyone outside of you can do. Only you can create the behavioral changes in your life to create a life that actually serves you, where you are healthy, thriving, healthy, and happy. All right, so we will touch on any questions throughout today. I will check in a couple of times. But to start out, I've got my trusty clipboard with me today because I have quite a lot that I want to cover with you guys, and I'm very excited. Okay, so one of the topics we're going to talk about is an acronym called SCARF. So our behavioral changes are focused on the behavioral patterns that we have learned. So our behavioral patterns come from our society, our culture, our religions, and our family lines. So some of this can be learned throughout your lifetime. So if you were raised in a certain way, you are raised to see the world in a certain way. And that can benefit you and others, but it can also hurt you and others around you. And that's why it's so important to do the inner work at home behaviorally, as well as the neurological changes here, so that, again, you can live your best life for yourself and for others. So SCARF is societally, culturally, religious, and family. And this can happen with you being conditioned in your life or taught or learned behaviors, but it can also be generations back. Because if you've ever met another family and they function completely different than you, or you meet someone who's from a different culture, a different religion, they may have completely different belief systems. And those create these patterns of behavior in how we show up in the world, how we perceive the world to be right and wrong. And so that is the root of what we're going to be talking about today. One of the keys to creating behavioral change in your life is having an open mind. Here's the tricky thing, though. A lot of people think they have open minds, but they don't. They don't. And that's okay. I have definitely thought I had an open mind at times, and we are always learning. That is one of the most beautiful things about life. And we can open ourselves up to life as this journey of learning and evolving and growing, to where it's this beautiful experience where we can always do better. And we don't have to shame ourselves and guilt ourselves and keep ourselves stuck in these old paradigms of really low energies, such as where we fearmonger ourselves into change, because that doesn't work. Has anyone here ever tried to create change in your life through fear, guilt, shame? Yeah. Has it worked for you sustainably in the long run? No. I can speak from my own experience. It usually doesn't work. Maybe you can, maybe you're the 1 in a million exception that you can create sustainable change that way. But most of us require love, and love comes from true compassion, openness to understand, and curiosity as key. When we can be curious about a situation, that's how we open our mind and our perception of reality to really see beyond all of these patterns that we've been conditioned with. Okay, does anyone have any questions so far? Are we good?
I just said, does the A stand for and for the SCARF?
Scarf. So scarf is just, that's a good question. Scarf is just SCRF.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now we're going to move into the second part of this talk where I am actually going to teach you guys a practice that I teach in my own business that I have shared with Doc earlier today, and he okayed me to talk about this. So this is something that I have, for those of you who know, I do conscious life coaching, and I coach from a place of I taught myself how to do things because no one else in the world around me taught me. And people influenced me and helped me find the way, but I had to create these systems in order to truly create change in my life so that I could go from being surrounded by people that didn't support me, that didn't actually love me, to creating a life where I'm surrounded by people who see me for who I truly am. Because when you change your inner world and how you treat yourself, the external world around you reflects that back to you. There's a lot of energy and philosophy that I could go on and on about, but that's not what we're here for today. So we are going to get into what I call the reality shift. So there are 3 steps to this. And again, this is something I curated myself. So the first step, I'll go over the steps briefly, and then we'll dive in a little deeper. The first step is observation. The second step is awareness. And the third step is intentionality. So the first step is observation. If you want to create change in your life, you have to understand why, what's happening, the thing you want to change, why is it happening? Where does it come from? Why do I keep doing the same thing over and over? And a brief example that I'll touch on a little bit throughout this whole talk is emotional eating, because that's actually one of my patterns that I've had since childhood. Food addiction, sugar addiction, it's real and it's difficult. And I used them, food, sugar, to suppress my emotions instead of learn from my emotions. And when we suppress it and we're not learning from it, we're not evolving as a human, and we stay stuck. And we stay stuck in these patterns that, for me, I kept eating all of these foods that I knew they weren't healthy for me. I knew I didn't want to do it, but I didn't know how to create the change and how to do it sustainably. And that led me to coming on the verge of getting an autoimmune condition, which, thank God, I'm here in this office because Doc is helping me reverse that while I can before I go full-blown autoimmune. And I'm truly grateful for that. But it also, again, I can't come in this office and sit on my knees and say, Doc, change everything for me. That's not how change happens. We have to change within ourselves, and that means we have to commit. And again, that comes from love, curiosity, compassion, openness, and allowing ourselves to take it one step at a time. So when we are observing, we are doing this curiously. So I'm going to give you a little homework for fun for those of you who are overachievers and you want to. If you don't want to, that's okay. But this is for those of you who are ready for change and you're done staying stuck in the old. So number 1, observe. You're going to spend this next week observing yourself, observing when you have these patterns come up. If you have certain tendencies that you go to, if you have certain emotions that come up and you go and you're like, I have to go home and have a drink. I have to go home and eat that whole bag of potato chips. I have to go to the store out of my way so I can get chocolate for myself. I have to just go numb out and watch TV and scroll on my phone. Doing these things that you know aren't actually giving you anything fulfilling. It's just helping you mask the void that you're avoiding. So you're going to observe yourself curiously, openly. You're going to be patient with yourself and kind with yourself. And if you need a tool through this, the last video that I did last week is on mindful breathing and an introduction to tapping. I recommend that video for helping you through the moments that when you're observing yourself and you're facing certain parts of reality for maybe the first time or the first time in a while, it can bring up a lot of stuff. And often, I know in my own experience, when that stuff comes up, we want to go to all those bad behaviors that aren't giving us what we actually want and need. but we're used to it. We have that pattern. We're trained, we're conditioned to continuously go back and go back. So you're going to observe yourself over this next week. Be easy with yourself. Use the tapping, use your breathing. Just be present and observe. Speak affirmations to yourself, such as, wow, I see this. This is hard and I don't like it, but I'm here and I want change. Speak to yourself in a new way. And it might feel very weird at first, but if you truly want to create change, it's just like if you've never gone to the gym before, but you want to be strong in your body, you want to build muscle, you want to feel fit and good in your body. You don't feel good after the first day at the gym usually, do you? You can feel sore for days. Even if you do feel some of the good benefits in the first day, you also feel some of like the negative. But that negative doesn't mean it's bad. It just means there's work to do. There's commitment. There's consistency that's necessary for the change that you want. And that's where that commitment piece comes from. So spend this next week observing. Does anyone have questions on observing so far?
No, but this is really helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So the second step, as we observe, we come to new awarenesses. And one of my favorite things to talk about with awareness, so for example, self-awareness. Some people think they're very self-aware, and they might be very incredibly self-aware in some ways, but they may be incredibly not self-aware in other ways. So there are always new awarenesses for us to learn. And what's beautiful in this world too, is that the awarenesses that I have, maybe you guys don't have certain aspects of those awarenesses, but you have other awarenesses that I don't have yet, because we're here to learn together. We're here to help one another out. And it doesn't make anyone better or less than each other. And that again comes back to that love, compassion, and openness piece, is to learn and teach ourselves to see reality for what it really is. And that's when we reach these new levels of awareness. We reach new types of awareness where we're seeing things we never saw before. So an awareness could be, I remember actually for the first time in my life, I lived many years of my life in dissociation because of traumas. And so I was just living day by day and I wasn't really present. And I still remember, I can physically see it in my mind, the moment that I was like, oh my gosh, I've been dissociated for years of my life. That was a new awareness. So we're always reaching these new awarenesses. And when we are observing, and we're doing it consciously, we're observing all of our behaviors, we reach these new awarenesses, and that brings us to the third step of intentionality. This is where the change happens. We take it step by step. We don't see something and we need to control it and change it now. That's when we're jumping back into that fear, that guilt, that shame, that rush, that hustle. Maybe there are certain things you can notice in the moment and change, but especially if you're newer to this work, give yourself the patience, give yourself the time. There is no rush. So you're going to intentionally, with that new awareness and all those observations of yourself, have a conversation with yourself. One of my favorite tools is mirror work. So you stand in front of a mirror and you look yourself in the eye. And if you can't look yourself in the eye, that's another beautiful opportunity for you to learn to connect with yourself and accept yourself. But you can have conversations with yourself in the mirror. And you can look at yourself and you can see the emotions and the energy that you're holding. And you can see, again, a new perception of reality, a new perception of yourself with totally new insight, just by looking at yourself in the mirror. But many times we're looking on the surface level when we look in the mirror. How do I look? How's my hair? Is my shirt right? Is there anything on my shirt? But we're not always looking at ourselves and seeing what's underneath. When we see what's underneath, we have those new awarenesses. And from awarenesses, we can decide, I really don't like that I just sat there and ate that whole bag of potato chips, because now my tongue hurts from all the salt and the crunchiness, and my gut hurts. And I just know that my mood is already shifting and I feel really irritable. I'm observing all of the effects from my choices. And it's leading me to these new awarenesses. So I am at a choice point. What do I want from here? Do I want to keep going down the same path? Or do I want to choose something different? What is the life that I want? And what changes does it require from me? Does anyone have any questions from where we are right now?
Can you give me an example of the disassociation types of behavior? This is a really beautiful talk because I'm actually like in sync with what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm in a divorce recovery class, and
Okay.
I started bringing donuts to class.
Yeah.
And so it's been like I can't stop eating the donuts, and then it's like a lot of shame comes up.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, why am I doing this? So it's funny you talked about the mirror thing.
Yeah.
Because I'll wake up and I'll be like, you're so hot in my mirror because I'm like,
yeah.
I'm trying to change my behavior associated with food.
Great.
Food shame for many years in the military.
Yeah.
So sorry that just to kind of give you my background.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So the question is kind of about how do we know we're in a dissociated state?
Right.
Okay, so I'll just kind of speak from my own experience and like I'll put myself in your shoes because I have similar patterning with food where if I would sit down and so for example, actually I had to give up gluten for my body. My body doesn't like gluten. I like gluten. It's a difficult life to live. So basically I would hang out with people and they would all be eating pizza, maybe donuts, maybe cookies. And I wanted to belong and I connected through food with people. And so I would always fall back because I wanted to feel like I belonged. So I would fall back to these old behaviors. And I knew, sometimes I didn't know in the moment when I was dissociated. I knew afterwards. And either or is beautiful and good because you're observing yourself and you're becoming aware so that you can make those intentional changes. Okay, so there's no right or wrong. You don't have to do it perfectly. That can be a really big challenge for a lot of people that like I was supposed to know in that moment to do the right thing. We're human. Right. We're not perfect. We weren't designed to be. So in the moment, sometimes if I notice myself becoming dissociated, that would be like, all I want to do is just sit here and continuously eat. I'm not having conversations. I'm not present. And again, we have to take this step by step. So you might not be able to understand and see these things like that at first, but over time, the more you practice, just like the more you go to the gym, the more you can look at the people around you and see if they're doing workouts correctly, things like that. Like you see the world differently the more you observe yourself, have these new awarenesses so that you can create changes. So other times when I'm in the moment dissociated, but I don't know, and then afterwards, I'm looking back and I'm like, holy crap, I was dissociated and I didn't know. And maybe this shame and this guilt is coming up. One, tap, work through it, be present with it. Because if we're not, sometimes we can try to go back to, let me try to suppress these feelings because I don't like feeling this. So maybe I'm going to try to escape by going on a run, by forcing myself to do something good. Maybe I'm going to go back to the pattern of, you know what, I'm just going to let myself have those chips and have that candy and I'm going to binge. We can escape in so many different ways. TV, even like going out in crowds that we know we don't belong in. We're just like, it's when we're not fully present. That's when we're dissociated. And so if you don't feel fulfilled by your life and by your daily moments, there could be a chance that you're not present. The only person who's going to know is you. And that's why observing yourself is so important. Because again, only you can do that work. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good because the disassociation is like, from what I understand, you're not present.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, it's like when we get that bag of caramel corn
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to go from the top to the bottom, like where in the moment are we going to apply that?
Yeah.
Tapping, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like, it's about to go down, right?
Yeah.
That bag of popcorn.
And actually I'm glad you said that because another version of this too is it's not going to look the same. It's not going to be, oh, everyone's going to use tapping. That's not how life is. Not everything works for everybody. So let's just say you're sitting there and you're going back to your binge. In this case, a bag of caramel corn. So maybe I'm sitting there and I'm eating and I'm dissociating out and I am just feeding that void. And I become aware of it because I've chosen to observe myself. Yeah. I've chosen to observe myself. So now I'm in this moment and I'm watching it happen. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this. The first time you do it, you might still binge and eat the whole bag. That might be what happens. And again, it's okay.
Maybe say, I love you, Debbie.
I love you, Debbie, even though you ate the popcorn. And then maybe the next time it happens and you're eating it, maybe you decide to say, you know, I love eating this, so I'm going to slow down and I'm going to intentionally enjoy this, even if I eat the whole bag. And then maybe the next step is the next time you do it, you say, I'm going to really enjoy this. And now I feel full and satiated. So I'm going to save this for future Debbie and eat this at a different time. And maybe the next time you're at the store and you see it on the shelf and you say, oh gosh, like I could go for that. But you realize I'm trying to suppress emotions. You know what? Actually, today I'm good with that. And I'm going to go for a walk in the woods and breathe and be with myself and be with the emotions. One of the most important tools is learning how to be with yourself. That could work through tapping like we did last week, but it could also work through hugging yourself, through holding yourself. We talked about last week, a lot of us weren't taught how to self-soothe. So we self-soothe in all these ways of scrolling endlessly on our phone, of binging the food, of going out, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, whatever your vice is. It could literally be running. Some people literally run away from their problems and they're addicted to it and they don't know. That one I think is trickier because we see it culturally, societally as healthy. So, yeah. Do we have any other questions where we are?
What is tapping? I didn't.
Yeah. So I would recommend going on that. I do have to wrap up here shortly because I take the bus. I would recommend checking out that video though from last week because we go through the whole thing. We do a little exercise. A lot of people who were here in office, they felt a shift even just by, we didn't even really do full on tapping. We just tapped the points. It helps move energy and emotions through your body. It helps you learn. It has something to self-regulate yourself while you're being present and accepting what you're feeling instead of, again, those like addictive patterns that we try to cover everything up with. So we're learning to be with our emotions. And that is how you create behavioral changes at home. Again, we're here in office to help you shift the neurological stuff. So like, for example, frontal lobe stuff, you may, like, some people react really quickly and they go into a rage, for example. We've seen clients and patients like that. And so we can neurologically change it so that instead of you reacting in 1 second, you react in 10 seconds. But it doesn't change the behavior. You can still react in the same way. But if you're doing the work at home, instead of reacting in 1 second, now you have 9 more seconds to consciously choose, what am I going to do here? I'm going to take a step back and take a breath. I'm going to observe and witness that this is what's going on and this is the truth of the moment. Bless you. And that is how we observe. We come to new awarenesses and then we can create change in our life from there. Okay? All right. Let me see. Okay, so then I had just a few things here that I just want to mention before we wrap up. So there's two kind of, I feel like, main sides of the spectrum when we're avoiding emotions, and that can be shutting down and that can be exploding. And you can be anywhere in the middle. It can look so different for all of us. I've definitely been on both sides of the spectrum. So what are different ways we can do this? When we shut down, again, it's about we reach these new awarenesses of, wow, I'm really shutting down right now, but I don't want to live like this anymore. It's accepting those truths, holding yourself, whatever feels like. I'll hold my hand sometimes. I'll hold my face sometimes. That's something that I would love, is like having my face caressed. But you don't need someone else to do this for you. We don't need to be codependent on the world around us. It's lovely when we have someone to hold that space for us, but we can also give it to ourselves. So yeah, like self-hug, self-soothe when we're shutting down. But then on the other end, when we are exploding, we can take a breath. We can move our body because sometimes we just feel so much and that's why we explode. Go on a walk, take some deep breaths, watch and observe the chatter that's in your mind. You don't just observe yourself externally, you observe yourself internally. All of this was conditioned. It's not you. So last few notes here. I want you to play with this. Observe yourself for a week If you can, maybe you make it 3 days and then you start coming to new awarenesses, and then you can start shifting yourself into doing more of the intentionality. Give yourself at least a week though, and see what awarenesses come up. See what decisions that you want to make, what intentions you're setting to change your life. So play, be curious, choose yourself, and most importantly, take it one step at a time. Because change doesn't happen like that. I'm sure everybody here knows that. And sometimes we can fall into shame when it doesn't, but also that's something to observe. That's something to tap through. That's something to be with. Does anyone else have any questions before we wrap up tonight?
This is really good because I have a class to go to on Saturday for my recovery, and I wanted to avoid it because of the donuts, but now I know I'm gonna have to go. And just work on the observation, awareness, and being intentional. How I'm gonna avoid the sugar. It's just like a drug, right? And so
it is.
And it's happened so long. So like I've been doing all these things that you're talking about, so this is really on point for me. So they
good, absolutely, And whatever you decide to do with those donuts, let yourself take it one step at a time. Maybe you observe yourself and what's going on, and you decide no donuts for me today because I feel good with that. Maybe it's I'm letting myself have one, and I'm going to slowly, intentionally eat it throughout the whole time I'm here. You have to make those decisions for you and what's right with you. All right. You're so welcome. We're going to wrap up today. Thank you, everyone who joined online as well as in person. It was so lovely to be here with you. And I would love any feedback that you have whenever you're in office next. And we'll see you then.